Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So the handicap marks have come out for this week. Before we start, I wanted to talk about a couple from previous videos, like the Lincoln video, highlighted two selections for that race, Hawkesbury and Scottish Summit. Both were disappointing that day. Both, next time out, were beaten a nose into second, trading at 1.32 and 1.13. As you know, I like to follow horses, even if I pick them in a race, especially if they've dropped a couple of classes. So those two were pretty gutting. We've had a few seconds recently that have traded incredibly short. But yeah, Scottish Summit traded 1.32, Hawkesbury traded 1.13 on their next starts after disappointing in the Lincoln. Something I do like to look at. If you like a horse, just because they run poorly for you once doesn't mean you have to cross them off. Unless you think the conditions were optimal and they had everything go right for them, the run of the race, then you could possibly look at crossing them off. But otherwise, don't give up on your horses. And, I imagine there's a couple in this video that I'm going to talk about. Their handicap marks have dropped, and yet I'm still going to give them another chance when I think they're going to get ideal conditions. We'll start off with the horse that I've highlighted a couple of years ago as a horse that I was a big fan of, but I think he's coming down to a good mark now, and that's Stone of Destiny. Stone of Destiny dropped £1 to 94 after his 7th place effort at Newmarket, where he actually travelled quite well. And you can see he reduced by 85% in the run. He travelled well, he moved into it nicely, looked like he was going to play a big part, and then just appeared to get tired. Now, it was his first run since September, so you can certainly forgive him for getting tired late on. And I think there's an obvious starting point for Stone of Destiny next, and then I think they'll end up at Royal Ascot with him. The first race that I think we'll see him in is this race here, the Epsom Dash, or it was called the World Pool Dash last year. It's decent prize money, 38 grand, nothing wrong with that. He went off 5-1 favourite for this last year, off a mark of 102. He's down to 94. He's down £8 for finishing third, but he ran really well. Surely that's when they're going to go back with him, back to Epsom for that dash off a significantly lower mark than last year. I think he'll run well in that, and I think he'll go up enough to get himself back into the Wokingham. And I think the Wokingham is a race that he should be looking at. He runs reasonable at Royal Ascot. You can see he was 8th. He ran okay in the Group 1 King Stands, and he was also 6th in the Wokingham in 2020. So he does generally run quite well at Royal Ascot. This one came off a mark of about 97, so although he's 94, he probably wouldn't get in at this current stage. But if he goes up 95, 96, that's when I think he will start to, he will get in. And, if he turned up off 96, I think he would go really close. Particularly if he goes, obviously up a couple of pounds, that would suggest that he's performed well on his last start. Hopefully, that's at Epsom in the dash, where Mocketeer is actually going to run later today at Epsom, but I have a feeling it might be a prep run for this dash return. If Mocketeer wins, that would obviously put his chance of retaining his going back to back in it down, and that would certainly improve the chances of Stone of Destiny. The second horse is a tricky one, but I just thought there was something in his run, or in his run, that caught my eye enough to suggest that there is a race in him. He has been really highly tried in his career, from group races, listed races, the 2-year-old trophy at Redcar, before returning in a handicap this year at Newmarket over 6 furlongs. I thought for a long way he travelled well. He actually over-travelled. He was far too keen early on. Then settled mid-race, appeared to be coming through and making an effort, and then stopped all of a sudden in the last half a furlong. I don't totally know what to do with vintage clarets myself. I don't know where they go, but he is a horse that I do want to keep an eye out for. If he runs in a similar race, even maybe slightly easier, he would be one that I would be very interested in next time out. He dropped £3. I forgot to say that. He dropped £3 to 93. I thought his effort was better than a horse that would be then drop £3. It was just that last little bit at the finish that really it cost him from, he moved into it. I think he moved into about second or third. And then right near the finish, just completely stopped and went back to 10th. Really, I think he was good enough to have finished third or fourth in that race, and he wouldn't have dropped £3 if he'd done that. The next horse is over hurdles now, so they were our two flat horses. This is our hurdle horse. We've only got the one, and that's Liznagaroscar. Now, he was very disappointing last time out in a handicap at Cheltenham. He wants softer going, though. His big efforts have all come on soft or softer, when he was actually being asked to do anything. Back here, these were easier races, so he could get away with it. Now, at his age, I do think he wants a soft ground. Granted, he disappointed here, but this was in the Stayers Hurdle. He was never going to get involved in that. He's not good enough anymore. The handicapper dropped him £3 to 142. When he returns next season, which I think he will, he's only 9. When he returns next season, there's a couple of races that I think would be very interesting. They could aim at this Pertemps qualifier to see if they can get him in the final itself. They would obviously only have to finish in the top 6, and then his handicap mark that he's currently got would be enough to get in the Pertemps final. If you put Liznagaroscar in this year's or last year's race, where would you think he would finish? That's the way I always look at it. And I think he'd go very close in this. These are not the best hurdlers at all, 3-mile hurdlers at all. I think he would go close in that. Similarly, there's this race that he could be aimed at, and they could try and win this race. It's a bit more prize money, but it would obviously affect his chance in the Pertemps final if they did want to go that way. But again, looking at the horses that were up there in the finish and those beaten, would Liznagaroscar be able to beat most of these? And I think he would. I think he's better than a lot of these when he gets his soft conditions. Now, granted, these two races were actually on good and good to soft. But if they enter him and it comes up soft, in one of these races at Newbury, I'd be very keen on Liznagaroscar. Now, the next horse I want to talk about is Zanza, who pulled up over hurdles, and the handicapper dropped him £5 over hurdles to 130, and he dropped him £5 over fences to 135. Now, he's only had 2 runs over fences since his last good run. He was second at Cheltenham behind Cool Cody, which has obviously been franked as well. Then he went to Cheltenham in January, and they had the cheek pieces on, and then they went to Kempton in February, and they had the cheek pieces on. They've taken him off, but they've changed his discipline as well. They've gone over hurdles. Go back over fences, leave those cheek pieces off. He's now ridiculously well handicapped compared to his early season form. He was second off 145 here, and he was 6th off 144. He's down to 135. £10 lower than when he was 6th, and £9 lower than when he was second. That, for me, that's got to be where they go, to all of those 2.5-mile races at Cheltenham. Okay, he may be one that is frustrating in that he finishes well and doesn't always get there in time. But off his low mark, he's now off a mark that he should be able to keep up and be quick enough to get there at the end. If you took off £9 when he was 6th, or you took off £10, when he was 6th, he would win that. And similarly, if you took off £9 when he was second, he would win that. Because he's got to carry £9 less for 2.5 miles. It's not £9 less for a neck. It's £9 less for 2.5 miles. You try running anyway. You try run 100 metres carrying a bag of sugar. It does tire you out more. You try running 2 miles with that same bag of sugar. That's going to affect you more than the 100 metres that you've just done with one bag of sugar. Because over time, obviously, the weight... It makes it slows you down more over a longer distance. So, off £10 and £9 lower marks at Cheltenham, I think he would go very, very close, and that's where I hope they end up just running in all of those races, the 2.5 handicaps. If Zanza didn't go there, I'm hoping this horse does then. Simply the Bets. Simply the Bets dropped £2 for finishing second to Stolen Silver at Cheltenham. Beaten 11 lengths. Now, he just wants soft conditions. All his good form really is on soft conditions. Look, soft, heavy, soft, Soft, good. These were his 2 recent runs on good. He disappointed in both. This one was a graded event. He was never going to be interesting there, and he doesn't stay the 3 mile. Anyway, this was on good ground. If he comes back over those winter months on the soft ground, over 2.5 mile, now down to 152, I think he'd go very close. He finished second here to Vienna Court, this race here, off 153, so a pound higher mark. And he was only beaten, what was he beaten, a neck or a really short distance? It might have been half a length. Back here, when he was 6th, when he was making his first, he was having his first run of the season after a year off the track. He finished 6th off a mark of 157. He was the only one of those prominent, I think I remember, that hadn't had a run, and yet he ran a really good effort still. He was the one I took from that race. He hasn't had conditions to suit. The only time he has, it was this one here, when he was 2nd. That was too far. He doesn't stay 3 mile. He doesn't want the good going. And he's now down to 152. I'm very keen on Simply the Bets next season. He's 9 going on 10. Not an issue. You know, if you saw a 9-year-old in November, October, November, December races, you wouldn't be put off by it. I don't think he's too old at all. He just wants those softer conditions, 2.5 mile, and at Cheltenham. And these are some of the races that he could look at. You can see Zanza was in this. I think Zanza was in the next one as well. Zanza indeed was. Simply the Bets was also there. Both ran really good races. So yeah, they're 2 that I'm keen on next season in those 2.5 mile races. And there's decent prize money for these races as well. The final horse I want to talk about is a horse called Moolah Gold. Now he's dropped £3 to 143, and I think this is a plan. I think this is a long-term plan with this 9-year-old horse for Dan Skelton. I don't think the horse wants 2.5 miles. I know why they tried it. Maybe. They maybe tried it because he'd always been staying on strongly in his races over 2 mile. But he had been winning those races as well, or finishing 2nd. You know, it's not like he was always finishing 3rd, staying on. He wasn't. He's won 4 races over 2 mile. He's finished 2nd, 4 times, 6 times in total, but some of those were in National Hunt flat races and hurdles. He wants those 2 mile, and I think I have a feeling they might be trying to win a particular race. 2 years ago, they finished 2nd behind First Flow in this Coralhurst Park handicap chase. This year, they finished 2nd behind Before Midnight in the Gerard Bertrandhurst Park handicap chase. I believe that is the same race. It is the same race. I know it's the same race. You can see the prize money was significantly better this year. They finished 2nd. Finished 2nd off a mark of 150. Because of his runs since, he was 6th at Cheltenham. He was then 4th at Ascot in a Grade 1. Never going to get involved there, was he? And then they stepped him up in trip. Because of that, he's actually dropped to a mark of 143. So he's £7 lower than when finishing a short head behind Before Midnight. A short head for £7. He would definitely turn that form around. Moolah Gold is a really tricky horse. He seems to be outpaced early over 2 mile and then finishes really strongly. But when they go over 2.5 mile, it doesn't work. He wants the 2 mile. You could almost put him in the same boat as Sky Pirate. Just needs everything to fall right for him before he can actually run a race. I think this was probably his only poor race of recent times. And let's just remind ourselves what it was. It was a handicap. He did disappoint. He was never involved. But I think that came off 152. He's now £9 lower. Even if you took off £9 here, he would go much closer. And to be fair, the race was quite a good one. Bundoran has come out and won since. Ferrero Bamboo's come out and placed multiple times. Editor's Ajit has done well since. It was a good race. A Moolah Gold just wants 2.5 mile, and I think they are aiming at that particular race. They did win this race earlier this season, and this could be where he also comes back, but the prize money wasn't as good. You can see it was double that. So they could suggest that winning this race is worth 2 of these. So they might not turn up here. If they do turn up here, then you would imagine he would go very close again in this 2 mile handicap, especially at Ascot. So there's my 6 horses this week. 2 from the flat, Stone of Destiny Vintage Clarets, 1 over hurdles, Liznagaroscar, and the 3 over fences, Zanza, Simply the Bets, and Moolah Gold. Thanks for listening. As always, do like the video if you like the video. That always gives me an idea of what type of videos you like and what type of videos you're not as keen on. So thanks for listening, and enjoy the rest of your week.